And so Honolulu is, again, it's kind of high makamaka magazine. They have judges and doctors and lawyers, so a very influential magazine. The cultural editor for Honolulu magazine was a man named Scott Whitney. Scott Whitney had a master's degree in Pacific Island Studies from UH Manoa, and he had become the cultural editor of the magazine, which is a little bit, okay, we'll see what happens. But he starts writing these articles that are really kind of just trying to cause us, some uproar and so forth. When I was in school at 35 years old, I was back being a freshman in college at UH Maui. My teacher, Keopia Raymond, brought this magazine in, and it said, "The Myth of Ohana." And this article, written by Scott Whitney, said that the word ohana, that we've all thought to be a cultural icon, and it's the central part of Hawaiian culture, is really kind of a made-up word. He said it's not a cultural touchstone. It was made up in the 1950s and 60s, and then it was taken up by people like the Protect Kaolave Ohana and others, and kind of used as political purposes. But ohana is not really a cultural concept. Well, it sounds ridiculous, right? But he had proof. This is the article from Honolulu magazine, with an accompanying photo that's pretty awful, right? It's a Hawaiian family. He's saying, you don't have an identity, right? I'll tell you who you are. He says, everyone thinks the word ohana expresses an ancient Hawaiian value. Not so. It turns out we made it up. Which is kind of like, first of all, who's we? Second of all, wow, like how can you say that? Well, he says right here, in researching the original article, I phoned the Hawaii State Library's Hawaiian Pacific collection and asked the librarian to look up ohana for me in the 1865 Andrews Dictionary. Okay, so I'll pause there. So this is a guy, this is the cultural editor of a magazine, right? Not a journalism 101 student, doing research on a cultural concept that he's writing about, questioning that concept, and he makes a phone call. Now he says earlier, and I'll point you to his thing here, he says, I went in with a thesis I wanted to be true and looked for evidence of that truth. Now it turns out, so he says the word ohana wasn't in the 1865 dictionary. That's pretty significant. The Andrews Dictionary was a good dictionary. And I heard that evidence and I said, wow, I don't believe him, but that's weird. Why wouldn't ohana be in the dictionary? Yeah? Well, it turns out it was in the dictionary. Yeah? He was wrong. The mistake he made was this. So as he mentioned, he says, I phoned the Hawaii State Library's Hawaiian Pacific collection and asked the librarian to look up ohana for me in the dictionary. He looked and told me over the phone that the word was not there. There's not even any O's in here, he mumbled under his breath. I should have stopped right there to follow up, but I was happy to be proved right that I hung up the phone and went on with my writing. Okay, now the fact that there's no O's in the dictionary would have raised a red flag probably for most researchers. But you see how he had this idea of what he wanted to prove, took that supposed evidence and ran with it. And not only ran with it, but published a major article in a major magazine. Now, the word ohana was in there. If you're familiar with the old dictionaries, they're alphabetized vowels and then consonants. Yeah? So it was A-E-I-O-U, H-K-L-M-N-P-W. And the librarian, which they should have known, right? The librarian looked past the N's and saw the P's and said, nope, it's not in here. Now, something that's silly, right, turns into a research article by a cultural editor, which still has legs, right? When I was teaching Hawaiian Studies 107, I assigned my students to do reaction papers. And a student about 3 or 4 years ago turned in a reaction paper to me and said, did you know ohana is a made-up word? She had accessed his article online, right? So did everybody who was talking about that when it came out, saying, oh, see, I told you Hawaiians make up culture, did they go back and tell everybody they talked to, oh, you know what, I was wrong? No. No, it spreads that knowledge, right? It spreads that supposed knowledge that this is a made-up thing. That's what happens when you have that confirmation bias, when you say, I'm going to prove something, and you find a little tidbit of evidence, supposedly, and you write it. Biggest mistake. Okay? So, what I want to do now is kind of have everybody walk through these resources that are online. There's 4 or 5 resources that are some of the most central ones that I use that for historical research that I think will be very helpful to you. And I'm sending them out by email with links, but hopefully we can all get online and show them now. Is everybody online? Everybody's got available? Yeah. Okay. So now, up here at the top, so what we're going to do, the first one we're going to do is called Thrums Annual. So Google Thrums Annual Online, please. Thrums Annual Online. Okay? I'm going to do it with you. Thrums Annual Online. Okay, and the first hit you should get, it says Home, Thrums Online, UH Library Guide. Yeah? Take your time, we're not in a hurry. Okay. Are you there? Okay. How are you doing? You there? Okay. So, yeah, so click that. You got it? Okay. So click that, and you're going to be taken to this place. Now, this is one of our awesome librarians at UH, Dori Minitadodi. She's put this together about Thrums Online. Now, so Thrums Annual was an annual that came out from 18, let's see, it's on my thing, 1875 to 1923. Incredible resource. It's got it's an annual, was put out, you folks probably know better than the young students, but an annual came out every year with the temperature stuff and the government positions and just tons of information about the nation. Just tons and tons of information. So we can use it to look at all kinds of things here. So here, these are all online versions, right? Or you can click the tabs here, and they are searchable. So you can search for words in them. All kinds of stuff. Like I was thinking, so I had a couple questions written down. How much beer was brought into the kingdom in 1893? You have a question. You're researching beer. You want to know, did beer use go up? Did it go down? So click on 1893, everybody. 1893, the tab. Okay, and it should come up. I don't know how fast our internet's going to be. Got it? Thrum was a kind of, not I want to say biographer. He was a historian type, kind of an armchair historian who gathered information. He works for the government, but he put out this annual every year, a handbook of information. Okay? So if you see there, now if you start to scroll down, you'll see the table of contents. It's going to take a minute to come up. There he goes. It's about 6 or 7 pages down. Just keep scrolling till you see that. A little further. Huh? I think if you scroll down like, or this piece. I don't know how to use PCs. I need to go on this arrow. No. Joe, you know how to use PC? I don't use PC usually. I don't even know how to scroll. Oh, this one. Okay, just use this. Yeah. There you go. Yeah. Sorry. So, you here yet? Yep. Okay. So we go here, right? It's got holidays, church days, calendars, latest official census, population by nationality and sex at principal townships, maternity statistics, elevation of principal localities, tons and tons of information about Hawaii. If you're a researcher, it's incredible. So I look in the contents, I can do the search up top, that little search box, and I put beer. Okay, try that. Put beer in that little search box up top, and it's going to bring me right here to imports, Hawaiian Islands. Porter, beer, and cider, $98,263.91. Pretty specific, yeah? So again, whether you're studying sugar, coconut, plant oil, whatever you're studying or just want to know about, the information's on there, how much they brought in that year in Hawaii in 1893. You can compare it to 1892, 1894, and so forth. And you can start to see, oh, this rose significantly in this year, or this was lower and higher, and so forth. So an incredibly important resource, yeah? So you go back through them. You go back up to the guide. I want to show you one other thing that we can use now, and this I want to use this to point out to make another point. History is not one-sided, and it's not two-sided. It's complex. It's complex, yeah. One of the things I also find my students doing is having a side they want to prove, and then running with those facts. It's a lot more complex than that. We've been working quite a bit on reviving the story of Lahui. Lahui is Hawaiian Independence Day. 1843, the Kingdom of Hawaii was recognized by England and France as a sovereign nation, right? That holiday was forgotten for, it was a national holiday in Hawaii. It was forgotten for decades and decades, if not a century. Yeah? So about 15 years ago, some students and Kanalu Young, a professor, revived the holiday, yeah, and brought it back. And now it's been a great source of pride. right? And so we talk about how this holiday was hidden and so forth, but sometimes people kind of run forward with it without doing that much research. And I kept hearing and kept seeing published that in 1895, Sanford Dole, who we all dislike, right, banned Lahui and replaced it with Thanksgiving. Like, that's pretty awful. It's pretty awful, right? Instead of Thanksgiving, they were celebrating Lahui. It was an official ban. Well, let's see. Holidays, church days, and etc. So click on holidays. And right here it says, holidays observed at the Hawaiian Islands. These are the official holidays, right? Registered as national holidays. The starred ones are national holidays. The other ones are just kind of observed. Right here, recognition of Hawaiian independence, November 28th. Right? So this is in 1893. I did it for 1900. Same thing. So up until 1900, it was a national holiday. Lahui was still a national holiday. Now that doesn't mean they didn't do anything wrong. It doesn't mean the whole story is wrong. It's just we got to watch for those details, right? We can't just make stuff up. Actually, so it wasn't replaced by Thanksgiving legally or formally. People might have started celebrating it that way and so forth. But if we're a researcher, if we're an academic, if we're a writer, or even somebody writing from the community, and we want to get the facts right. So no, it wasn't replaced by Thanksgiving. Not until like I think 1902 was around the time, right? So things like Thrum's Annual can give us facts and details that help us keep those stories straight. We can still make our point without going out on a limb and saying something that people come back later and say, oh, he lied about this, so everything he says must be wrong. That's doing research, right? Okay? So Thrum's Annual is a great, great resource. Look at what else is up here. Rulers of Hawaii, Kuhina Nui of the kingdom. So all the Kuhina Nui, right? Kahumanu and the ones, they're all listed right there. Hawaiian Postal Service, school statistics. How many schools were there on Maui in that year? How many schools were in so forth? All of this information is in Thrums. Really wonderful resource, okay? Okay, so that's Thrums. Let me go back to our big one. The next one is the Hawaii State Archives. These records date from the monarchy to the current legislative session and also include the papers of the individual and organizations, photographs, maps, artifacts, rare books, 19th century newspapers. Hawaii State Archives is open to the public. Okay? They've got a great online site. So Google Hawaii State Archives. Theirs is a little bit harder to navigate. They've been playing with it a lot. If you Google Hawaii State Archives, you'll get a hit right down here that says statearchiveshawaii.gov. That's where you want to go. Okay, statearchiveshawaii.gov. Hawaii State Archives. Okay, and then you can go right down here to digital collections. Okay, and then I'm going to click digital collections. And it's going to bring up this. Another great, great resource. Look at what it's got. Genealogy book index, Chinese passenger manifest lists. They've just been digitizing these. Japanese passenger manifest lists. They list the passengers that were arriving from Japan and China as workers in the 1890s and 70s, 80s. Portuguese passenger manifest list. Government office holders. Land indexed. They've got a name index. You put a name in there, and if they've got information on it, it'll pop up. Subject index. You can look at roads. You can look at whatever you're researching. Sugar, molasses, beer, anything. Government records. Judiciary, Mahele book. The entire Mahele book is there. Tax records, vital statistics, World War I service records. Yeah? Lots and lots of great information. So what I was looking at is, I was working on an essay recently about William Richardson from the law school. And he has a great genealogy to other lawyers, right? William Richardson from the law school, his grandfather was a man named John Richardson. So let me go to government, where to go? Government office holders, right here. So government office holders, I click that, and I'm going to put John Richardson Jr., because he was a junior. Or I'll just put John Richardson. Like say I didn't know that. John Richardson. Okay? And up comes Richardson Jr. and Sr. So I click on Jr. Now, depending on your computer settings, mine downloads it and then I open it. Sometimes it'll open it straight up for you. So I go here, open it up. And I find out that John Richardson, December 27th, 1880, became a labor contract agent. 81 was a notary public. 82 was a commissioner of private ways and water rights. 84, he was elected to the House of Representatives from Maui. 87, 88, House of Nobles. 91, the Privy Council. And 91, Colonel on the Queen's staff. Great information. Really wonderful biographical information to start a research of John Richardson, right? And now I know, say I didn't know that he had a father, who his father was, now I know, right? Senior, I can click on his. And I find out John Richardson Sr. was a judge also. Judge of the Second Circuit. The Second Circuit is Maui. First Circuit is Oahu. Second Circuit is Maui. So now I know that William Richardson came from this really famous John Richardson, but his dad was a judge too. Right? So more stuff about the legacy of that man and law and judiciary and so forth. So really great information. So let's go back. Digital collections. Subject index. Right? And I can put in schools. Oop. Right? Oahu Catholic School, Huimanu School, Elementary School, Aina Haina, stuff like that. So sometimes random information, but tons and tons of information. Okay? One other thing that the Hawaii State Archives online collection is really good for is photographs. And really exciting because they don't cost you anything. And they're in the public domain, right? So if you go to, and I'm not picking on Bishop, but if you go to Bishop Museum and you find a photograph you want, it's going to cost you $40 or $50 to get a CD image of it. And it's going to cost you another chunk of money if you want to use it to publish. If you're writing an article and you want to publish it in a journal. If you find the same photographs at State Archives, they're free because you already own them, right? The public owns them. And they've got an amazing, vast collection. They haven't digitized all of them, but they've got a great collection. Let's look at some of them. So, photograph collection. There's literally thousands and thousands. So look at the, starting with A, they go alphabetical. Airlines, old photos of Hawaiian Airlines. Airports, right? Animals, aviation, bands, buildings, right? So you're looking for a building and you want to know if there's a photograph of it anywhere. The bandstand, the Hawaiian bandstand. The Iolani Palace Barracks. Kapawaiiwa building. The library main branch. All of this stuff is there online with photographs of you, again, for free. So if you look down into the people, they've got a section on Christmas in Hawaii. Yeah? So they've got people, but they've also got royals or ali'i. So royalty. So this is photographs of royalty. Some of them sometimes they have dozens of them. If you say Lili'u is your favorite monarch, you can go to Lili'u. And they've even got her divided up by pre-1880 and different periods. So we're going to go pre-1880. Come on, Internet. I want to show you a couple of examples because what will happen is it'll bring up one or several or dozens of photographs. They're all as thumbnails. When you click on that thumbnail, it'll expand, right? But even once it's expanded, it'll often give you choices of how big you want it because they're just giving you it on the screen. So if you want a really good image, you can choose the largest size, right? And it'll come up for you. Let me see if we can get... Try one more time. So the internet's slow with loading pictures, but you get the idea. So you can click on the name, the images will come up, and then once you click on that thumbnail, keep an eye out for a choice also again to get the even larger size. Okay. Okay. So that's Hawaii State Archives. Lots and lots of great stuff. They're digitizing more stuff as I speak. There's also finding aids. Let me show you some. Yeah, let me show you a finding aid if I can. At the Hawaii State Archives. And to give you an idea of what it's like. So, Hawaii State Archives, digital collections. Okay. Let me go back. Terms annual. Okay, so there's these are different finding aids in different groups. There's a finding aid called FO and EX. FO and EX in the Kingdom government was the federal, FO and office and executive, foreign office and executive, and that collection, the finding aid is here, is 109 pages long. The finding aid is, but you look through this inventory of the records of the foreign office and executives. And it's just got tons and tons of really valuable information. Listing each specific document, yeah? Letter from Richard Charlton. Petition asking for construction of a Chinese hospital. The King's invitation to dinner. You know? Marriage and divorce. You know, all of the stuff that the executive, the monarch, and the foreign diplomats were doing, a lot of that stuff is here, and you can find the exact number for it and everything before you go to the state archives. That way when you go, you've got the stuff ready to give to them, and it won't take you an hour to find it. So so part of our online research we can do is we can prepare to go to the archives, so we cut out all the time while we're there. So that FO and EX document is huge. I mean, it's got 100 pages of stuff, letters that you can find once you're there. Memorandum on the cost of the principal articles of furniture in the palace. You know, all kinds of interesting stuff. Okay? So that's State Archives. Let's move on to the next one is the Hawaiian Mission Children's Society Library and Archives. Okay? Very important archive. They've recently changed their name, which as a researcher you hate because stuff quits being listed as how you've known it for 40 years. They've always, for 100 years, they've been known as the Hawaiian Mission Children's Society. They've just rebranded themselves, and now they're the Hawaiian Mission Houses Historic Site and Archives. So, hopefully that stuff won't change online too quickly, so you'll still be able to find the Hawaiian Mission Children's. But this collection has a digital collection that I want to show you. So if you Google Hawaiian Mission Children's Society, Hawaiian Mission Children's Society Archives. Hawaiian Mission Children's Society Archives. Yeah? Hawaiian Mission Children's Society Archives. And you're going to find these different hits. If you bring it up. Oops. I'm sorry, it's the first one there that says Library and Archives. The shorter name, I'm resistant to using it, is Mission Houses. That's what they're calling themselves, Mission Houses. So if you Google Mission Houses, you'll find this. Okay? So, Hawaiian Mission Houses, Historic Site and Archives. Library and Archives. You click that and look for Digital Collection. Click through once again, Hawaiian Mission Houses Digital Archives. Okay? This one's a little bit, you know, you got to navigate a little bit. The easiest way that I've found to do it is come over here to Digital Archive, Collection Tree. That's all the different collections they have listed, right? And you'll be able to find stuff. So Collection Tree. Now look at this. Now these are the originals. You're going to be able to see the originals and download the originals if you'd like. The Ali'i letters collection. Hundreds of letters from the Ali'i, right? From Boki, from David Malo, from Paki, from Ulunui, from all of these people, right? You've also got the missionary letters collection, very important collection. They've digitized all the letters. They started with Maui. They've digitized all the letters of the missionaries, and they're online available for you. We used to have to, I spent years in there going through the microfilm and boxes of stuff. Now you can do it all online. You can find out any of these guys that are in the area you're studying. You can read their letters, right? They've got The Friend. The Friend is the Hawaiian Mission newspaper that came out once a month. That is all available online. And then they've also got a collection that I've mentioned several times recently, and I want to mention again every time I can, because it's really an amazing, wonderful collection that just became public. The W.O. Smith collection is what they're calling it. They've actually changed the name of that again. They like to change the names a lot. They've changed the name from the W.O. Smith collection to the Provisional Government Papers. You can find it under either. But the W.O. Smith Papers, William Owen Smith was the Attorney General for the Kingdom of Hawaii, the Provisional Government, the territory, and the state. So that time of the overthrow and annexation, he was the main law guy. So he collected these documents about the overthrow and things like that, and he kept them, right? Which wasn't too uncommon. It wasn't like they were stealing them. They were government property, but that happened a lot. Judd did the same thing. They took a lot of letters home in their private collections, and so that stuff made it into private archives. Now, you could very much make the argument that these are public documents. They should be in a public archive. But the matter of fact is, for right now, they're in private archives. So this collection is about 57 boxes. It was held by a private family, by the descendants of William Owen Smith. A wonderful woman who used to come by the archives all the time, donated it when she passed to the Hawaiian Mission Children's Society, and they've got it now and they're processing it. They've put some online already, which to their to give them credit, their private archive, they don't have to do. And they've made these documents available. Some of them, I think, are the most important documents in Hawaiian Kingdom history. And I'll show you why. One of them in this collection that they've already digitized, you click the W.O. Smith Papers, and it's got Kingdom of Hawaii, Kingdom of Hawaii. And if you look down here, there's a letter. Statement from Queen Liliuokalani, January 17th, 1893. Right? The day of the overthrow, when the oligarchy proclaim a provisional government, and they say they've taken over the monarchy, the Queen issues a formal protest that we're all probably familiar with. She says, I, Liliuokalani, by the grace of God, Queen, do hereby protest against such action. So that official protest, I've read it 1,000 times. This is the original. This is the one she wrote. And she sent it to the government. The government got it. W.O. Smith got it, took it home. It's been in his descendants' backyard in Manoa for the last century. Right? Now it's available publicly. And here it is. I'll show it to you. And you can download it. It's available to you, the public. So we open it up. Yeah. Oh, sorry. And here's the actual, this is the original letter of the Queen. Received by the hands of the late cabinet this 17th day of January, AD 1893. Sanford B. Dole, Chairman of the Executive Council of the Provisional Government. This is the protest of the Queen. One of the most important documents in Hawaiian history. And that was in private hands until 8 months ago. And now it's available publicly for anyone to download and use. In my mana'o, and this is outside of the straight research part of it, this is where research becomes applied research. We were talking earlier about how research changes students and changes communities and so forth. You bring this document out to schools and you show kids the actual letter of the Queen and say, this is what your Queen did. She stood up for the nation, right? That makes a difference. This is where research can become applied research. And because this is now public, we can do that. Yeah. The other documents within this collection, I want to show you another one that's, as a historian, was huge to see, was this letter of Minister Stevens. So when Minister Stevens declares those guys who have supposedly taken over the de facto government of the Hawaiian Islands, when he does that, he affords them certain rights and so forth. Now, he can only do that if they're actually in charge, if they've gotten possession of the police station and the palace and things like that. Now, in 1893, when the president investigated what had happened, Senator Blount came back and said that was a lie. Stevens had lied. They didn't really have control of the police station and everything. And so the U.S. Congress actually fired Minister Stevens. The annexationists held their own hearings later, run by Senator Morgan, called the Morgan Report. And the Morgan Report said, no, 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 Stevens was right. He was telling the truth. So we have two different competing stories. And although we've kind of known, we've never had evidence before of what the actual facts were until now. In that collection was a letter of Minister Stevens, marked private to Sanford Dole, and you can download it. It says right here, letter from Minister Stevens. And this letter, which, again, changes history. Oop, wrong one. Let me grab it. It's right, letter from Minister Stevens to Dole, right here. Okay. Okay, the letter says, United States Legation, Honolulu, January 17th, 1893, private, Judge Dole. I would advise not to make known of my recognition of the de facto provisional government until said government is in possession of the police station. Stevens. So that's a smoking gun. That's proof that Minister Stevens perjured himself in front of Congress, lied to the Congress, lied to the investigators, and that they didn't actually have control of the police station. They weren't actually the de facto government when he said they were. That's huge. That's a big part of history. And again, that's available to anyone now because it was put into a public archive. Or actually, I'm sorry, a private archive that decided to make it public. So that's the type of stuff, you know, not everything's that dramatic, but that's the kind of stuff that's in the Hawaiian Mission Houses Museum archives also. Okay? One or two more, and then we'll finish up. The Hawaiian Journal of History. I'm a little bit biased. I'm part of the Hawaiian Historical Society, but it is a wonderful, wonderful resource. The Hawaiian Journal of History has been published since 1967. The 2017 issue is in process right now. So there's 50 volumes. General Hawaiian history, Hawaiian and Polynesian history. There's an index to the Hawaiian Journal of History that's both online and in hard copy, but you can search the actual volumes online yourself anyway. So if you just want to go through and see the type of stuff is in there, look at that index that's online. If you are looking for something specific, you can search for that, and I'll show you how. So if you Google Hawaiian Journal of History, Hawaiian Journal of History, okay, you're going to look for the site that says Hawaiian Journal of History eVols. eVols is a online resource run by the University of Hawaii, right? And they've got them all stored there. So they're all digital, right there, all of them. And you can search the collection right up here, okay, the community. So if you're looking for something that might be, if you're studying a topic and you go, I wonder if it's in there, you can say something like, Kaumakapili Church. Kaumakapili Church. Say you're doing history on Kaumakapili Church. You search the Hawaiian Journal of History and you come up with all these hits, right? There's an article, there's another article, table of contents. So all of these journals have Kaumakapili Church in them in some way. So you can click on that. You can open it up, see what this hit is. Once you're inside this document, you search for Kaumakapili. Yep. And it tells you these are burial grounds near Kaumakapili Church. Yeah, and there might be more and more. But all the different hits, sometimes it'll be a whole article, sometimes it'll be a mention. So whenever you're doing any subject, it's good to go to the Hawaiian Journal of History, eVols, and see if there's stuff in there. Somebody might have already researched quite a bit. There might be a lot on it. Yeah? Okay. So, Hawaiian Journal of History. Okay. New Pepa, yeah? Hawaiian language newspapers, English language newspapers. 1834 to 1948. We have over a century of newspapers online. The two best sites to search the newspapers, if you're looking for the English language newspapers, there's a site called Chronicling America. Chronicling America. Okay? So if you search for Chronicling America, Hawaii. Okay? Once you go to the main site and pick Hawaii, you'll come up with all the papers that they have on Hawaii. Okay? So they've got the Hawaiian Gazette, the Evening Bulletin, so forth. The Maui News started in 1900, right? So you can go by date. You can go straight into the newspaper. Say I want to look at Maui in 1910. I go to the Maui News. I go over here to Issues 4 and I go to 1910. And I got it right there. So I can just start going through and reading the paper in 1910 and finding out what was going on in Maui. I can go to a specific date and pull that paper up and find out something I'm looking for in particular, and so forth. Yeah. You can also do types of searches up here, right? You can do with quotes around it and search for a certain word or certain things like that. So that's a great site called Chronicling America. For the Hawaiian language newspapers, I believe the best site is Papakilo, which is this. This is put out by, is this KS? Yeah. The KS, OHA. Sorry, OHA. The OHA folks. And at the bottom, you've got search newspapers. And it brings up this list, right? You can search by newspaper title, which means it will show you all the lists of titles. You can go by date, what year you want to look at, or you can just do a general search. Say I'm going to look at 1870. I go by date. I go to 1870, right? Say January, and it'll tell me what papers were put out in January 1870, right? Kanupepo Kuokoa, Kealaula, Okahai Katolika, and so forth. So you can search them that way. Okay? So another great resource. And then finally, one more easy one. It's a really nice research resource is Google Scholar. Yeah? Google Scholar, there's actually two I put on here, Google Scholar and the Hawaii Pacific Journal Index. The Hawaii Pacific Journal Index is a little bit kapakahi. It's a little bit messy sometimes, but this is on the UH Hamilton site, and it's journals and publications and things like that that have been published about Hawaii. So you can search that. Google Scholar is another way, and if you look at online, say if you Google search Google Scholar, it'll bring up this normal-looking, Google site, but it's called Google Scholar instead of normal Google. And if you type in your subject there, it'll bring up articles that have been written about it in any way. So I say, if I'm going to go really broad and say Hawaii, got all kinds of stuff. Science, heliobacterial pylo something, infection and gastric carcinoma among Japanese Americans in Hawaii, right? So tons of anything like, but there's also, not so scientific things. But this is what's been written about that topic. You can be as specific as you want. Okay. And the last thing I want to mention is, go back here and mention some specific journals relative to Hawaii. Some of them in publication, some of them not, that have been that store a lot of information. And all of these have online presence. So if you Google them yourselves, you'll be able to get to them. One is the Contemporary Pacific. Contemporary Pacific is put out by the Pacific Island Studies Department at UH Manoa. A really wonderful journal, in my opinion. It covers Micronesia, Melanesia, all of Oceania, and Hawaii. Dr. Trask used to publish in there a lot of great stuff. And they've got an online presence. Really great articles. Another one is OEV. OEV online is they're not putting anything out right now. But the stuff is online, the content from the past. So you can look at some really great issues from OEV. That came from UH also. And it's a Native Hawaiian journal. Hulili comes out from Kamehameha Schools, right? Native Hawaiian Wellbeing, a really nice journal that's online. Hawaiian Journal of History I've mentioned. There's a brand new one called Pala Pala. Brand new online-only journal put out by Dr. Kapali Lyon, who's in the religion department at UH, and others. And it's all about Hawaiian literature, Hawaiian language and literature. It's called Kapala Pala. There's an article by Ku'ula Haumanavanui in the new one, the first issue. They're doing an issue coming up about Dr. Jean Charlot. So all kinds of things. So that's a brand new journal called Pala Pala that you might check out. Okay? So these journals online, Google Scholar, Hawaii Pacific Journal Index, all of that stuff. So what I'll do is, if you've given me your email, I'll send you the documents, the resources, digital resources we've already put together, if you haven't gotten them already. I'll also send you a list of the ones that I went to today with the URLs. So I know everyone took notes, but just in case you didn't get everything written down, I'll send you a list of all that stuff. So make sure you leave me a clearer email. Okay? Yeah. Okay, cool. That's even better. And I'll do that. Just to let you know, the students that are working on these seminars, we got one more to go, and then we're going to do them next semester also. The students that are working on these seminars are working on a specific project, and I just want to mention it to keep an eye out for it, and I might have last time. But it's Native Hawaiians in the university. Now, I'll show you why this came about. About a year ago, I was doing some research on John Henry Wise. I've written about him quite a bit, and an amazing man. Besides the many, many other things he did, he was one of the men responsible for having the university come into being. But he also was a professor at UH. He was the second Hawaiian language professor, 1926 to 1937. When he passed, they named the football field after him, Wise Field. Yeah. It's been renamed, not officially, but it's been kind of taken over by this name, Bachman Lawn. But so we're all calling it Wise Field again. So I was interested in Wise's helping start the university. And so I started going back and doing research on UH's founding. And about 10 years ago, the chancellor asked every department to put out a history of their department. Math department, science department, and most didn't listen to him. But CTAR did, because CTAR is very proud of the fact that they started the school, right? The University of Hawaii came out of a land grant that came out of a Bureau of Tropical Agriculture. So originally it was a government bureau that turned into a college that turned into the University of Hawaii. So they put out this hugely fancy book about the starting of UH. And I was interested in it, so I was reading through this, and I came across this supposedly researched statement about the founding of the university. And tell me if it rings true to you. Okay, so they're talking about the actual start of the agriculture department that becomes the university. So on January 4th, 1893, the Hawaii Bureau of Agriculture and Forestry was established in the Republic of Hawaii, also established in 1893. When was the overthrow of the Queen? What date? January 17. They just said January 4th, 1893 was started by the Republic. The Republic of Hawaii didn't exist until July 4th, 1894. That bill that created the Bureau of Agriculture was signed by the Queen. It was passed by 2 Maui senators, Hawaiians. The Queen signed it, that created the Bureau of Agriculture that became CTAR, that became the university. Yet our history of it says the Republic did that, right? That's something that you could have done with a tiny bit of research. And this is a book published by UH Press, and I don't myself think it was intentional, but I think it speaks to that idea that we have this narrative of university, academia, intellectualism came from those white men who came from America and started a university. That's not what happened. Kalakaua was starting universities long before that, was pushing for it. The Queen started the Bureau of Agriculture that became the University of Hawaii. Right? So with that knowledge, we said, well, what was Hawaiians' interaction with the university early on? So we've got about 100 students now working on this project that's doing research that's saying, what Hawaiians were at UH in the 1920s and 30s and 40s and 50s, and what were they doing? So we have Ke Anuenue, the sorority. We have Imi Loa, the men's sorority. We have these beauty pageants they were having and things like that. So all that kind of stuff our students are looking at to try to say, what was Hawaiian engagement with the university in the 1920s and 30s and 40s and 50s? And then of course we know there's no engagement. We have folks like Dr. Trask and others who are engaging with the university, fighting with the university. So we're looking at kind of rewriting the history of Native Hawaiian presence at UH. So that's what this project's going to be. Okay. Thank you so much for coming out today. Leave me your email. I'll send you the other stuff I can, the resources. I thank you so much for your time. I know it's an Easter holiday and an Easter weekend. Thanks for coming out. Okay? Okay? Aloha. Mahalo. 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 Thank you.